Welcome back. Let's have a chat today about what literacy and resilience have to do with each other. I get this question a lot because I'm always talking about both of these things. So there's really 4 areas that I think there is tremendous crossover. So number 1, learning to read is effortful, and everybody who learns to read has to have a certain amount of resilience and grit in order to push through that frustration. So that's the first thing. It's fairly obvious. The next thing is a little bit less obvious, but as your child develops these skills of resilience, and resilience is not just one thing, it's actually a list of things. It involves grit, it involves self-control and self-regulation, it involves empathy, it involves ethical decision-making, it involves honesty, it involves problem solving, it involves all of these different things, but we label it all under this big umbrella called resilience. So as your child is reading about characters, whether you're doing the reading or whether they are reading for themselves, they're going to start connecting with characters in books. And every good book is written with a very similar structure, right? There are nuances, but we've always got a setting, we've got characters, we've got a problem, and we've got a solution. It is usually the main character coming up with that solution. So as your child starts to connect with these characters and read about characters, they're also going to read about the problems those characters face and the solutions they come up with. The way this crosses over is that as your child connects with these characters, is exposed to different problems, exposed to different solutions, and then they face those problems in their own lives, they're going to have a well to draw from, not just their experience, but also the experience of the characters in the books that they've read. So that's number 2. Number 3 is vocabulary. So vocabulary is a very obvious part of reading. In order to be able to comprehend what we read, we need to understand what the words mean. As your child builds their vocabulary, they're actually going to build not just their reading comprehension, so their literacy, there's also going to be crossover with their problem-solving skills because they're going to be able to more adequately communicate what their needs are. What do I mean by this? So part of resilience is being able to say, this is bothering me, I need this, or can you please do this? When the kids were little, they would come to me, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and I would always say, that's a complaint, not a question. Think about what's going to solve your problem and then ask me a question. Very simple step for them to say, oh, okay, I'm thirsty. Can I have water? That's problem solving. That's the difference between complaining and problem solving. It's what we want to move our kids to. So when they are developing their vocabulary, they are going to be able to more adequately ask for what they need. So funny story. So Bailey was 4 years old. She was in preschool. She's going a couple mornings a week, and I went to pick her up, and the teacher was like, come over here. I was like, oh gosh, you know when you get summoned by the teacher, like you start sweating. This could go 50-50, right? And she was telling me the story about how on the playground, Bailey was super frustrated with this little boy and came up and asked the teacher for help. She's like, I need help. So-and-so is antagonizing me. And the teacher was like, he's doing what to you? And after some back and forth, she finally realized Bailey was saying, he's antagonizing me. And she had learned that word because that's the word that I always used at home with her and her brother. Stop antagonizing each other. It's not the same as mean, right? And oftentimes that's what kids will start with. Stop being mean to me. Well, they're not really being mean. They're bugging them for no purpose except their own personal enjoyment. They're antagonizing. And so she had learned this word. So she was able to very adequately and specifically ask for help from her teacher based on what was frustrating her about the situation. He was antagonizing her. So that's number 3. So number 1, you need perseverance and grit to push through to learn how to read. Number 2, you identify with characters and you borrow some of their problem-solving skills. 3, you build your vocabulary so that you're more adequately able to communicate your needs. And the 4th one is my why. So one of the reasons that I jump out of bed every day is I have a slogan that I stole from somebody that says, until every child can read. And that is what I work towards. The reason is because I want every single person to be able to read God's word for themselves. If somebody is not a reader, if a child is not a reader, they cannot read the Bible. And the Bible is God's primary way of communicating with us. And if somebody can't read the Bible for themselves, they're sort of forced to rely on somebody else's interpretation or teaching of that. And I want to make sure that every child is able to encounter God's word for themselves. As they do that, they are going to build all of those skills related to resilience, all of the grit that they need, all the self-control, all the self-regulation, all of the ethical problem solving, all of the patience, all of the humility, all of these things that go into raising a resilient child. So that's my answer for how literacy and resilience crisscross. So I'll see you next week.